Thanks for checking out my channel. I'm happy to have you here. Please subscribe, also hit the like button. I hope you like my voice, it's the only one I have right now. Well, I will switch from man to woman voice here and there. Thanks again. I have set up a Patreon account, so you very special people who likes my stuff can keep on getting my videos. I think it's only $1 a month and up. Thanks again, and now the stories you've been waiting for. Posted by user New York Nisiza. A creepy man with a creepy smile. Okay, so this is probably the creepiest moment of my life, and I remember this like it was yesterday. This happened when I was 8 years old, and I'm 21 now. So in primary school, in Ireland it's school from 4 to 12 years old, I would get dropped off about 5 minutes walk from school by a shop to avoid the traffic. This was every school day for about a year and a bit up to this point. It was a safe area and even had the police station nearby that I had to walk past. I had gotten used to the walk by now and didn't pay attention to much except watching cars go by. Now, to give you a visual of my walk for the incident, I have to walk round a small corner, slightly uphill, and pass a set of steps that led into a cut-off and quiet set of houses. Often enough, I'd use the steps as a shortcut and walk up them off the main path. And then after this, one more corner and straight uphill to school. Not far, you know. The morning my walk changed came on a Friday. I remember it because we were going to the theater that day with my class to see a show, and I was really excited. Being excited, I was very distracted, and as I turned to walk up the steps I looked up them to walk up. At the top of the steps was a man. I couldn't tell you many specific details at this current point, but I remember he was just standing there in a longish black coat and a flat cap, staring down at me. I stopped. Something about this man gave me the creeps, and it felt like I had gone cold. He wasn't moving much, and not coming down the steps. He was just staring. Then he gave me the creepiest smile that even today I can't get out of my head. I don't remember facial features of this man this far on, but I still remember that smile. He then started walking down the steps towards me. This all happened in about 20 seconds. I kinda stood there frozen for a second and then ran. I didn't even think about the police station. I guess I was too young, but I had always been taught not to trust strangers and to run to a house and get help, which I did. I looked behind once and he was at the bottom of the steps but has stopped following. He waved when I looked back, almost as if he was trying to be friendly. I ran to a house that I knew one of my granny's friends lived in, which was nearby but off the route to school. She called the guards, police, and my granny. I didn't go to school for a few days and I never walked again. I haven't seen him since. So, creepy man with the creepy smile, let's not meet again. Posted by user Fentyadict. Almost kidnapped in Miami because of Instagram. My best friend is an influencer, not big time but with a big enough following to get free shit, and has gotten 2 sponsored trips. She still works a full-time job but does the IG thing on the side mostly because of the perks. She's not big enough to live off this yet. Anyway, this was her first trip. A little boutique hotel from Miami contacted her via IG and DMS and offered her an all-expenses-paid trip to Miami for Memorial Weekend 2018 in exchange for her to be in the hotel and take pics and do a couple of stories. She was told she could bring a female friend with her if she wanted to, and everything would be covered for. This was her first time doing this, so at the time she wasn't really sure of how it worked. They sent her a bogus contract for her to sign, and it said she'd be responsible for paying for her plane ticket to Miami and that she'd be reimbursed for it later. This was to prevent a no-show, meaning the influencer gets the ticket purchased by the hotel and influencer never shows up. It seemed reasonable. She invited me, gay dude, instead of a female friend because she was nervous about the whole thing. We figured it wouldn't be a big deal, and worst case scenario they don't want to pay for my plane ticket, she'd just cover it for me and that's it. We were supposed to be picked up by the hotel at the airport, so the day comes and we arrived to Miami. There's a guy holding a sign with her last name and the paper has the hotel logo. We are greeted and we are escorted to a black SUV. Here is where it gets weird. as soon as we are gonna get in the car the driver is visibly upset. We thought he was talking to the guy who walked us over, but he was talking to my friend. He had a very thick accent and was wearing dark shades. He was telling my friend that she was not allowed to bring her boyfriend, me, and that she said it was two girls. Hotel told me 2 girls, number 1 girl 1 guy 2 girls. He was demanding to see where the other girl was. We were speechless and confused. The guy who walked us to the car looked annoyed, got in the passenger seat and started to fight with the driver in Portuguese. It wasn't Spanish. Then he turns to us and asks where the other girl is. My friend tells them, very upset by now, that there is no other girl, that she is at insert name and that I'm just a friend coming with her on the trip. The big guy in the passenger seats gets out, tosses our luggage out of the car and says something like, "This is some fucking bullshit," gets in the car and they take off. That was it. We were in shock. Utter and complete shock. My friend immediately emails Melissa, the PR person we had been in contact through email with, to tell her what happened. No response. We decide to take a cab and show up to the hotel. When we show up is when everything made sense. The hotel had been rebranded and had a completely different name, owner, and staff. We show them the IG and is indeed the IG of the hotel it used to be, but not the new one. They never contacted us, they never did anything. Whoever was in charge of the old IG account for the old hotel did, or whoever got a hold of it did. Mind you, this was a somewhat big hotel account with 10k followers. IT was real, but upon further inspection we realized the pics were really old and so were the posts. My friend felt like an idiot and would not stop crying. We called the police, met up with a detective, nothing ever came out of it. They investigated who was running the account before or who had access to it. None of the people who used to run that account had anything to do with it. Nothing ever came out of this. It's upsetting and scary to know that whoever wanted to abduct my friend or any other girls by using this old hotel Instagram knows who my friend is. That IG has since been deleted and we never heard anything from anyone ever again, but to think my friend would have been kidnapped had she gone with another girl instead of me sends chills down my spine. Be careful and creepy hotel in South Beach, LNM. Posted by user Murglers. Person who mutilated an animal in the woods? Let's not meet. A few hours ago, I was feeling restless, so I decided to take an almost night walk. I drove to a park 10 minutes away from my house that functioned as a giant playground/place for kids to play baseball/picnic area. It has a nice loop hiking trail off of it that goes alongside a river. The park is in the middle of a upper-class suburban neighborhood, and I've walked the trail several times before, so I felt safe to walk by myself and potentially in the dark. I was around 20 minutes into my hike, walking along a flat part of the trail with high trees on either side. I'm deep in thought when I see something in the center of the trail. I'm so shocked I do a double take. It's the severed head of a baby deer, facing me. It was very fresh, it looked as if it had been there for less than an hour. The deer was likely a newborn, it was very small and had bright white spots. There was no blood on anything except for the exposed neck. I briefly looked around the sides of the trail for signs of the rest of its body, but I saw nothing. The plants on the side of the trail were knee-high on either side, so pretty successfully obscured anything there was to see. Then I jogged back to my car, glancing behind me the whole time. I didn't see anyone else on the trail on the way back. This is the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. I didn't bring my phone so I couldn't take a picture. I don't know what kind of animal would do something like this. The biggest predator that could possibly live in that stretch of woods would be a coyote or a fox, if they even lived there. And, if they did, why would they move the head? Or how would they separate the head from the body? And then move it without eating anything from the head or even puncturing it? I don't want to jump straight into theorizing that there's a sadistic sociopath terrorizing my local park. There are so many unanswered questions. How would someone even kill the deer if they weren't a hunter? Or, did they find the deer when it was freshly born and unable to run? Then they killed it and sawed through its head to put it in the middle of a path? Did a teenager find the head already severed and just decide to put it in the path as a prank? Still super fucked up. I have no ideas. I'd be greatly interested in hearing theories of what could possibly have caused this if it has a benign explanation. Otherwise, anonymous animal killer? Let's not meet. Posted by user Godjus. He was standing in the dark, completely naked, and wearing a mask. I had the strangest encounter happen to me this year. This happened to me on my college's campus in January. My boyfriend and I try to go to the gym every day. Sometimes we go in the morning, sometimes we go really late at night. Well, one night we decided to go at around 1 AM, the gym is a 24-hour Gold's Gym. Anyway, the gym is walking distance to my boyfriend's apartment. So, we walked to the gym together this fateful night. During our walk, I don't remember what it was about, but we got into an argument. When we got to the gym, I was in no mood to work out. I was upset and my boyfriend and I were pretty much ignoring each other at that point. After 10 minutes or so, I left without telling him. Which was a stupid idea, but we live just a few blocks down the street so I didn't think too much of it. It was nearly 2 AM, it was cold, and I was by myself. I remember being kind of creeped out because not only was it late, it was winter break and campus was barren. But I was mad and I am stubborn so I kept walking. At about 1 block away from my boyfriend's apartment, I felt a presence next to me. I looked to my left and standing underneath a tree with branches that hung low, in front of an abandoned building, was an overweight Caucasian male completely in the nude. But that's not all. To accompany his birthday suit, he had on one of those goddamn Mardi Gras masks that cover half your face. I was stunned for a second. I thought he was going to do something but he didn't. He just stood there. After we made eye contact, he said hi and waved. That's it. Didn't move. Just stood there. In the dark. Naked. As he watched me walk by. Even though I was scared and shocked like never before, I refused to give him a reaction. I looked up, looked at him, stopped for a second, looked away, then kept walking at the same pace. After I knew I was out of his sight, I walked the rest of the way back to the apartment. During the short walk between the weirdo and my destination, I phoned my boyfriend and told him what had happened. 3 minutes later, boyfriend barged through the front door and we told his 2 roommates what happened. They all decided to run out and hunt him down with broken bottles and kitchen's pans, lol. They never found him and I never saw him again. To the creepy nudist with the Mardi Gras mask, let's never meet again. P.S. Apparently this guy has made multiple appearances around campus trying to scare students. One student actually managed to snap a photo of him that I hopefully still have. Posted by user thinkown_28. Creep wanted to know all about younger me. Remember this outfit, it will come into play later. Pink dress with black, hot pink, and white polka dots with a black belt ribbon around my stomach. Black leggings and pink shoes. With a pink hair band. And my hair up in a ponytail. When I was younger, I had neurofibromatosis. My parents and I had to drive 8 hours to Dallas to get 6 months checkups. We were staying 4 nights because I had appointment one day and a next one the day after. It was the day of the first appointment, the 3 of us were getting hungry since it was time for dinner, so we found a really good local seafood restaurant. We walk in and the lady was explaining to us everything since it was our first time there. My parents are deciding what they want and I'm just between them looking at my surroundings. Then a man walk in, we think nothing of it. He sits down at the opposite side of the restaurant and he starts talking. We think he's on the phone, he's not, but he starts describing my outfit. Keep in mind the only other people there is the lady, my parents, me and the creep. He says how beautiful I am or saying I'm cute. Again he's talking to himself. I start to get uncomfortable so I move closer to my mom. We all hear it but we don't know what to do. Then the man clearly says I don't know her name, but I am gonna find out her name. This makes my dad move us when we do. The lady comes back thinking we are ready to order. My dad explains the situation, she understands and stays with us. Not even 5 minutes later the man comes back and starts talking to my dad about me. He asks him what my name is. Of course my dad refuses and tells him to go away. The man doesn't listen and keeps asking what my name is while inching closer and closer to me with every sentence. My mom and dad are in full mama and papa bear mode. My dad has me behind him and I have my back towards my mom, but she is holding me close to her. Finally the lady tells him he can leave or she'll call the cops. Luckily he decided to leave, mad because he didn't know my name. Now I'm 19 and as in a miracle from God I don't have neurofibromatosis and I don't have to go back to hospitals anymore, but we still take vacations to Dallas. My mom and I, mostly me, are scared to go back to that restaurant in fear we will see him again. So creepy guy, let's not meet again. Posted by user Sawaha. Creepy man with the blue truck. First off, I want to start by saying I'm on mobile. This happened about 6 months ago, and I finally mustered up the courage to post this on Reddit. Also, my first very long post, so bear with me. I'm usually not scared to go out alone in the late night hours if I know my surroundings very well, and especially if I need to. I'm a small, petite girl about 5'2" and 130 pounds. I always carry around pepper spray, and if I'm going to the store or something I'll text my boyfriend and let him know exactly what I'm doing. Sometimes I'll even send him my current location to let him know exactly where I'm at in case anything goes south. On this day, I was heading to work, at a bar, and I didn't have time to stop and get gas beforehand. After work, I had planned to visit my boyfriend who lives about 80 miles away. Once I got off of work, I knew I needed to get gas and it was extremely late, 2 a.m. I usually stop at this gas station on my way to the city my boyfriend lives in, for several reasons. The inside is open, it's brightly lit, the cameras are up to date, there's always a guy inside, and he lets me use the bathroom even though it's designated for employees, so he is pretty nice. On my way driving there, I look around at the other stores and places, and notice a blue truck parked at another gas station across the street. I'm waiting for the stoplight and look to my right. The gas station I'm going to is directly across from this gas station. There's a car, just parked at a pump with no one pumping gas, no one around, and the gas station is obviously closed. So as I'm looking, I think, yeah, that's definitely odd. I turn my head straight and the street light turns green and I proceed to the other gas station across the street. I see another car there, so I'm thinking, thank God there's another person. I go inside, give the cashier some money and then proceed back to my car. I left my phone in car and had the gas door open, and my keys have pepper spray, so I had that ready. As I'm standing there waiting, the guy at the other pump leaves and I'm like shit, now I'm alone at the pumps. I'm staring at the gas station across the street. The blue truck has probably been parked there for about 7 minutes now, and if you're using debit, that's probably a long time to be at the pump. It was there as I drove here, there as I pumped gas, and is going to be there once I leave. Right when my gas is almost finished, a guy starts running from across the street. He looks disheveled, not homeless, but hasn't showered for a couple of days. He wore a black, faded, oversized hoodie, baggy jeans, and he was bald. His beard was a bit grown out and he was Hispanic. He looked to be about 35-40 years old, or maybe younger. I'm a bad judge when it comes to age. I'm at pump 5, let's say, and he keeps his distance at pump 4. He asks me if he borrow my phone to make a call. I was thinking of an excuse like I don't have a phone or it's dead, but then no one would believe that anymore. So I just kept saying sorry, no. He claimed the blue truck across the street was his and that he was having trouble with his car. He kept insisting that his phone was dead and he needed to call a friend to help him with his car problems. Now I'm thinking, what a total liar. There's a Denny's right across the street, and another gas station, and a Safeway, all still open. Not to mention, there was another guy here pumping gas earlier, why couldn't you come and ask him if your blue truck was parked there for some time? He literally left seconds before you came. If he was in dire need or help, he would have went inside and asked the cashier, or went to those other locations where there are more people. So I kept saying sorry no. I finish pumping gas, haul ass into my car, and leave. I called my boyfriend and told him about the blue truck and weird dude. A couple weeks after that, I went to the same gas station, but at an earlier time, maybe about 12 a.m. And guess what I saw? The same blue truck parked at the same damn pump. I was with my boyfriend this time, and there was more people at the gas station. I told my boyfriend I wasn't lying and that was the same blue truck I saw last time. Fast forward to a couple weeks ago, I ran across a post from a girl in my city where I pumped the gas. She reposted a Facebook post about weird guys going around and doing exactly what that guy did to me. It was also saying something about human trafficking recruiters. Now you can imagine how I'm feeling while reading this. It might not be the same guy, or it could be, who knows. Maybe there's multiple people going around doing the same thing. I usually would love to help out a stranger if they needed it, but this guy just did not seem like he needed help. So guy with the blue truck, let's not meet again. At the end of a quiet road, behind a veil of twisted black oak trees, there was a house. A woman lived there. On bitter nights like this one, she sat by the fire and read until she grew tired enough for sleep. But on this night, as her lids grew heavy, she was startled by a sound. A sound she wasn't accustomed to hearing these days. Who could be calling, she wondered. And this late? She rose from her chair and picked up the phone. Hello. I'm going to kill you, a man with a deep voice said. Who is this? She asked. No answer. Who is this? She repeated, her hand trembling. There was a click. Silence. She quickly dialed the police and explained what had happened. The officer told her to wait while he traced the call. After a few moments he said, "The call is coming from inside your house." "That doesn't make sense," she said. "How could someone be in Sadimi house?" "He probably broke in," he said. "Oh yeah, I guess that makes sense." "And that's not everything," he said. "I'm not a police officer." "You aren't?" "No, I'm the killer guy from before." I never actually hung up. But I heard a click. The man made a clicking sound with his mouth. "Like that," he said. "Wow, that's really good. Thanks." "So, are you really inside my house?" "Yeah, totally." "Where?" The man's breathing grew heavier. "I like your hair," he said. "Wait, you can see me?" "Yes." "Wait, you like my hair?" "It's really nice." "If you can see me, then what am I wearing?" "Looks like a blouse from Banana and a skirt from Ann Taylor Loft." "Wow, you really can see me." "I can also see." "Wait, what the hell is that?" "What?" "There's a person, a ghost hovering near you. It's sort of hard to trust you after the click thing." "No, I'm serious, over by the couch." The woman turned and gasped, "Oh my God, I see it. I knew this place was haunted. Jesus Christ. Is it a kid?" He's all translucent. Looks like a little boy." "What does he want?" "I think he wants to play. He's holding a kite." The ghost boy floated closer and spoke, "Play with me." "Oh my God, he can talk," the man said. "Play with me," the ghost boy repeated. No thank you," the man said. "He can't hear you," the woman said. "Put me on speaker." "Hold on," she said. "Try now." "We don't want to play with you." "Okay, Junior. Just run along." "Why," the boy said, cocking his head to one side. "Playing is fun." "No it isn't," the man yelled. "Who are you?" the ghost boy asked the woman. "Why are you in my house?" "Oh, I'm Ellen. I actually live in this house now. And the voice you're hearing on the phone is. I didn't get your name. It's, Douglas, the man said, reluctantly. Douglas is hiding somewhere in here to kill me, right, Douglas? Ellen said. That was the plan, Douglas said. And you guys are scared of a kid with a kite? Jesus, the ghost boy said. A dead kid with a kite. Douglas said. There was a heavy silence for several moments. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Expecting someone? Douglas asked. It rang again. Ellen walked over and opened it. Standing there was a hulking man in ratty clothes, barely concealing a bloodied machete behind his back. Pardon me, ma'am, he said. My car broke down and I was wondering if I could charge my phone in your house. Sorry, I don't think so, Ellen said, starting to close the door. The man shoved his foot inside. Well, I do think so, he said. Ellen stumbled and fell to the ground. Who the hell is that? Douglas screamed. I'm a homicidal drifter. Who the hell are you? The drifter said, confused. Where's that voice coming from? He's a killer hiding in my house, Ellen said, holding up the phone. Douglas. Hiding? Where? The drifter asked, looking around nervously. He's in the closet, the ghost boy said. What in the shit is that? The drifter screamed. I'm a ghost. I used to live here like 100 years ago. Oh, and let me guess, you don't want to play with me. Hell, no, I don't want to play with you. What's going on in here? What's going on is no one will play with me. For Christ's sake, no one's flying a kite at night, Douglas shouted. Give it up. The ghost boy began to cry. Now you made him cry, Douglas, Ellen chided. Sorry if I'm a little on edge because you let a killer into the house, Douglas said. First of all, I didn't let him in, he busted in, Ellen said. It's true, I did, the drifter said. Second of all, you're also a killer, Douglas. Touché, the drifter said. And third of all, don't say sorry to me, say sorry to the dead kid. O.K, okay. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have snapped at you, Douglas said. The ghost boy smiled. Everyone seemed to calm down a bit, until the doorbell rang again. Ellen walked toward the door. Don't, the three others shouted. She opened it and peered outside. There was no one there, just a large wooden box on the front step. There's a box out here, Ellen said. There's no label or anything. I have a bad feeling about this box, the drifter said. I hate this box, the ghost boy said. Ellen ignored them and carried it inside. She turned to the drifter. May I? He wiped his machete on his pants and handed it to her. She popped open the top, reached in, and pulled out a tattered clown doll with a sinister grin. What is it? What is it? Douglas yelled, through the phone. Some sort of clown doll, Ellen said. I don't want to play with a clown doll, the ghost boy said, beginning to cry. Why don't we just put this thing back in the box before it gives us all nightmares, O.K, the drifter said. Look, there's a string, Ellen said, pulling it before anyone could object. The clown began to wheeze, its eyes shifted from side to side, and an eerily cheerful song emanated from its open mouth. Welcome to my circus. My circus of fun. There's nowhere to hide. There's nowhere to run. You're all my guests inside the big top. I'm going to kill you all, basically. The clown let out a terrible cackle. Really psyched you pulled the string, Ellen, Douglas said. I mean, come on underscore. What does the clown mean? The ghost boy asked. I think he was pretty clear, the drifter said, wringing his hands. He's going to kill us all basically. How's a doll going to kill us? Ellen asked. Each of them silently surveyed the room in anticipation. Suddenly, the lights went out. What happened? Who did that? The ghost boy screamed. I can't see anything, the drifter said, I literally can't see anything because it's too dark now. Through the darkness, Ellen let out a cry, oh no! Ellen! Douglas screamed, what is it? It's the clown. It killed her, said the drifter, his voice shaking. And we're next. He killed Ellen, the ghost boy sobbed. Seconds later, the lights flashed back on. Ellen's hands were raised to her face. My stupid contact lens slid out of place, she said, spreading her eyelids apart, and poking at her pupil. So annoying. Oh, please don't do that, the drifter said, squirming. What's she doing? Douglas asked, with dread. Touching her actual eyeball with her actual finger, the ghost boy said, wincing. It's a real slippery one, Ellen said, maneuvering deeper into her eye. Can't get a grip on it. Douglas gagged. Oh my god, that's so vile. The drifter raised his fist to his mouth with a grimace, as Ellen pressed her thumb against her wet, quivering eyeball for leverage. Ugh, now I think it's folded up under my lid, said Ellen, stretching her lid out. Can someone look and tell me if they can see it? There was a click from the phone. Douglas? Was that a real click? The ghost boy faded into the wall, saying, I'm out. Ghost boy. She heard the front door opening behind her. Drifter? You, too. The drifter turned to her with a dazed look. I hate this place so much, he said, then dropped the machete from his limp hand and walked into the darkness.
Me and my friend had a creepy experience. It's a Halloween true story. Anyways, here it is. Me and my friend, who I won't say their name, were going to a haunted house in our area. It was crazy because we never actually went inside of a haunted house, it was always usually the normal trick or treating. We were both 11 at the time. So we were walking to the haunted house. When we had finally arrived, it was creepy as hell. It looked very realistic and I knew that these people spent a lot of time into the haunted house. It was a maze-like haunted house, you had to find your way out in darkness. When we were inside, my friend decided that she wouldn't go ahead in first, and that I would have to lead the way. I felt annoyed, but it was fine. It was very dark and I couldn't see well. A fake Michael Myers looking guy scared the sh*t out of me. Then there was a basement, which I sadly didn't know about as I tumbled down the stairs. They never told you how to get out, so I assumed you'd have to find a door. My friend saw a door which seemed to be a way out. She opened it and I followed after her. It wasn't that good of a discovery though, as we saw some dark red in the door, which had a light on. We both ran out of there ASAP. I legit was scared of being in there now. I then saw another guy who said he found the way out. Me and my friend both went out and thanked the guy nicely. We were then walking home disturbed, but relieved that we got out of there. We then saw a guy pull up saying he had candy in his car. I was very stupid back then and I decided to follow, while my friend went along too. When we made it to his car, he opened the trunk of it and had a lot of candy in there. I was so happy and wanted as much of it as possible. He then said this, I have a lot more at my house, you two wanna go? We were total nincompoops and went around by the side door, when my friend spotted about 4 other men inside of the car, some with creepy looking smiles, and they were the creepiest looking guys I ever saw. Yellow teeth, most with balding black or brown hair. A bald guy with a tattoo on his neck. My friend got scared sh** and ran away. I followed her and the car followed behind us. The car decided to go slowly, but make sure it could see us. I assumed to not look suspicious. I then decided to run into the woods to hide, because we were in a dead-end street at that point. My friend went behind some bushes. I came up with an idea and I'll forever thank the game hide and seek for this. I told my friend to come next to me and I led her down under a bunch of branches. It was different because these branches surrounded the area and they were dipped down from a small hill on a rocky-ish surface, almost like a small cave. I then grabbed other branches to surround us completely to the point where we would be nearly if not even impossible to see from a nearby angle. We both heard footsteps and held our breath. We then saw feet right next to us, but go down the hill. We heard other footsteps go farther, farther, and farther. When we couldn't hear them anymore, we both removed the branches as quickly as we could and sprinted to my house. We called the police, but couldn't do much since we didn't get the license plate. So we just dropped the whole thing and moved on. That was easily the scariest moment in my life. This moment hasn't ruined Halloween for me though, and I still love the holiday. I'm sure I'll never forget this moment though. Okay, I've got a good one. Make fun all you want. I'm just reporting the facts of a bizarre experience I had in early 20s. This all takes place in the Santiam Wilderness of Oregon during a deer hunting expedition involving myself and one other. If anyone's curious as to where exactly, we were somewhere between Canyon Creek and Gordon Lakes, and when I say we were in the middle of nowhere, I mean nowhere. My friend Dan and I set off for a several-day-long hunting trip, which back then meant until we ran out of food and whiskey. We had driven way up an old logging road in an attempt to reach an old trailhead that drops in a backway to Gordon Lakes. Well, we get a ways up the road only to find the road has a massive washout. Instead of making a new plan and backtracking, we decided we would backpack in, set up camp for the night and continue on the next day to the lake and hunt along the way. So we did just that. After several miles of hiking, mostly uphill, we find a decent clearing just a couple hundred yards off the old abandoned road and set up camp. After cooking some grub and getting out the whiskey, we start into a good bullshitting session as we build a large warming fire. And this is where shit gets weird. It's completely dark by now, middle of the wilderness dark where anything outside the firelight is dark as pitch. We're just chumming it up, stoking the fire, not a care in the world, when my friend Dan puts up his hand in a hold-up motion as he looks over to his left into the darkness. I naturally go into high alert at his sudden gesture and start looking, listening intently myself. "Do you hear that?" he asks. "Yeah, is that someone walking down the trail?" We both heard the distinct sound of another human being tromping through the brushy trail. Next thing I know, Dan yells out in an inviting voice, "Hey, come on down, we got some booze if you're thirsty." I'm still on high alert because, A, what the hell is another person doing up this abandoned old road that took us several hours to hike, and B, walking in the pitch dark and not announcing his presence well before we can hear him. But what happened next is what sent chills down my spine and made my hair stand on end. Instead of hearing a response from Dan's invitation, we get dead silence. We're both on edge now, and after a few tense minutes we both decide it must have been an animal. This still didn't sit right with me. For one, if it was an animal, it was big enough for us both to hear it, and did not take off crashing through the brush at Dan's announcement. Even a bear, black bear in Oregon, will take off on a haphazard dash through the brush when surprised by humans, deer and elk the same. Usually it's just them catching your scent that triggers this response, let alone shouting at them. Whatever it was, decided to just freeze and hunker down, not making a sound. After discussing this, we both agreed it must be a cougar. Guns came out for safe measure. There is a problem with this theory though. Cougars are insanely stealthy. Ghost cats is an old nickname for them as they move in dead silence. In fact, when you're trapping a cat, you hide the foot trap under some moss just in front of the bait. You then set dry twigs everywhere except for the path leading to the trap. The cats refuse to step on dry twigs and they're staying in stealth mode and will step right on your trap, every single time. Just wanted to give that context so everyone understands why I'm still uneasy. Having spent my whole life in the woods and being young and invincible, my mind was racing trying to come up with logic. Well, whatever it was seems to have passed and we get back to our whiskey. Still on the back of our minds though, so we build a asshole-sized fire. Eventually we feel assured it was nothing and decide to turn in for the night. We stack the remainder of wood on the fire, got in the tent with a small flashlight illuminating us as we situated our sleeping bags. Lights out with the campfire glowing outside, and wouldn't you know it, the footsteps return. We both sit up at the same time, again on edge and startled. The footsteps come all the way into our camp. At this point I grab my hunting rifle and say to Dan, "If anything touches this tent, I'm fucking blasting it." Just then the footsteps circle the fucking tent, coming from behind us, and as it walked around to the front, its silhouette was lit by the campfire and seen as a shadow on the tent. Whatever it was upright and tall like a man. The last thing I remembered as it walked off away from the direction it came, was me looking over at Dan as he had both ears plugged with his fingers, anticipating me firing the rifle, his face stricken with fear. As was I. Now even to this day I can't bring myself to say Bigfoot, even suggesting it makes me feel ridiculous. If it was a man, it was just as fucking weird and creepy. Some creep dirtbag almost got himself shot, all in a weird attempt to what? Scare us? Seems ridiculous. He would have had to hike hours to pull off his stunt, and what's more bizarre is the direction he walked out led to thick forest down a steep hillside. Literally walked away from any trail or roadway. So to this day I don't know what we experienced that night, but I swear to every word, and if anyone has a good explanation, I'm all ears. Posted by Used Tiny Vanny. He wants to see my mom. I have a bad habit of letting random people into my DMs on Instagram. Once in a while, I'll make a good friend. But most other times, it's so creepy. I really should stop before I get another post to write for this subreddit, but alas, I am curious. A guy slid into my DMs earlier this evening, starting with, "Or hot, winky face," which is where I should have ended it. But no, my curiosity got the better of me and I continued talking to the guy. He was a boy around my age from Lebanon, so I didn't feel all that threatened. What's he going to do? Swim across the Atlantic Ocean to America? That, and he seemed normal enough, despite a little horny. All of a sudden, he started asking to see pictures of my mom and my family. Can I see a photo of your family? You and your mom? Me, I don't have any, sorry. I do have pictures of my dogs, though. Huh? I want parents, not dogs. Me, why? I need that. That line was a little weird, but I just assumed it was his broken English since it wasn't his first language. I cleaned it up for your reading purposes. Of course, I was wrong. Me, for what, exactly? To just see the family. That was also weird, and I wasn't about to give my family's faces out to a random stranger on the internet that I've only been talking to for a half hour. Me, I don't have any pics, sorry. Okay. It's okay. Me, sorry about that, I told him, thinking it was the end of it. I was wrong. But you can do that, lol. Have selfie with your mom. Or take a pic with her when she's in the house or sleeping. Sleeping? That's creepy. Who takes pictures of people when they're sleeping besides as a joke? Me, why do you need it so bad? Wanna see you when you are an adult woman. Surely you would be like your mom. So I wanna see your sexy mommy, winky face. Me, I'm not gonna look like my mom. I will be sad. Me, I'm sorry. She's asleep. This is where it got, surprisingly, weirder. Awesome. Go to her room, take many pictures of her while she is asleep. It's easy, like effing, winky face. Me, dude, no. I should have just blocked him then. Then again, I'd had another guy make several other accounts just to keep talking to me, and I thought he was going to do the same. So, I was just going to try to end the conversation. What do you want in favor for a pic of your mom? Me, nothing. I'm not showing you my mom. Why? I will help you. Me, with what? With losing your virginity, winky face, I blocked him right then and there. That was the last straw for me, man. I should have blocked him long before that, but I wanted to see how far he would go, to be honest. Either way, I hope that dude never returns to my life. It was a very weird hour and I don't know if I'm gonna keep letting random people into my DMs. Remember kids, don't show random people pictures of you or your family. Don't give out any personal information, either. Let me know if this belongs in another subreddit, I just thought it fit here because it was a creepy encounter. TLDR, a random dude slid into my Instagram DMs and demanded pictures of my mom in trade with helping me lose my virginity, that I never asked to lose. Posted by user available idea 0. Mildly stalked, creepy ass dude. So, this is a recent event. I actually just made a comment about it not too long ago on here but not extremely in depth. I started this new job about a month ago. Everything was going well. It's not too complicated, I like it. I like the people I work with. Yada, yada. I smoke a lot and sometimes I have a lot of downtime to do nothing. Insert creepy dude here. I was going out front to smoke where most people do and I enjoy my solitude. I do not really chat everyone up, this is a summer job anyway as I'll be moving. No point in making that many friends, I'll have to leave. Well, for a while that was working out, and I didn't even really notice this until someone else pointed it out. One day a fellow co-worker and I go out to smoke and he's out there. We don't speak but after that he starts appearing more. He starts chatting me up, which whatever. It was making me a little uncomfortable because I just want to be left alone. It seemed like I never was anymore, he was always out there anytime I was from that point. One day this past week he sends me a friend request. I reluctantly accepted. He starts with the messaging. What are you into tonight? And my fiancé doesn't do this or that I'm the crazy one in the relationship, she's sort of a bummer, mind you he's in his 50s. I'm 25, and I'm married. Well, this creeps me out beyond belief. Yesterday at work I make a beeline to avoid him, but at every corner there he fucking is. Even following me around the building. I had to hide at one point. I made this girl I work with go with me to another smoking area with me at every break I took. What's even freakier is we caught him and how he always knew when I was smoking. He stopped pushing his cart, goes out the doors, looks outside for me and when I'm not there continues doing his job. At this point is when she tells me he doesn't even smoke that much or go to break that often. My cousin also told me she caught him watching porn outside one morning. Creepy ass guy, when I move, let's never meet again.
Posted by user Lisa Moriyama. TLDR, my skate park stalker, let's not meet. So this happened maybe about 7 or 8 years ago now when I was 14, but it creeped me out so much it's always stuck with me. When I was younger I used to be a typical scene kid, I know, I'm not proud but that was the style then. I had long blue hair with the bangs to match and I always hung around the skate park with my friends, who were mostly boys at the time. One day, during a summer heat wave here in Scotland, I noticed a boy standing at the side of the park by himself, just watching. He was about 18 or 19. I figured he was just watching people skating but he showed up again and again. He then started talking to some of my friend asking about me. I found this pretty weird at the time as he was so much older but I just brushed it off and thought nothing of it. Then one day when I was walking back to the town center, shopping center close to the park, I noticed I was being followed so I texted one of my friends who I knew was still hanging about and asked him to meet me. This boy followed me all the way back, 20 minutes walk, and stood round a corner and watched me talk to my friend, who then said, "Do you know you're being watched?" I replied with yes. He's followed me all the way from the skate park and has been watching me for days now. This wasn't the only time he followed me either, he showed up multiple times once. I phoned my dad to come and pick me up from the bus station at night and he hid round a corner again and watched me get in the car, when I say hid I mean like stereotypical hiding and peering from a dark corner at kind of creepy. Another time I was walking after the shops had closed through the center, I seen him walking from the opposite end. I thought he had passed me, but when I looked he was pretending to look in a closed shop's window, then swirled around and started walking behind me till I went into one of the only shops open, a big Sainsbury's, and lost him. The last time I ever seen him was when I was running for a bus, as I got on the doors closed, but I then seen this boy running looking in the bus windows trying to get him to stop and let him on. Thank God the bus driver kept driving. This whole thing scared me so much I stopped hanging about there and even lost contact with the friends in this story, so yeah, creepy skate park stalker, let's not meet.
I have one experience that will make some people second guess who they dating at any point in time. While dating an ex of mine a few years back, we traveled from one major city to our hometown, which is about 8 hours. We had just finished a weekend of partying on a cruise, and the two other friends with us decided it'll be a good idea to drive back home that same night soon as got off the ship. We ended up getting back the next morning, everyone completely exhausted, decided to stay over at my ex's house and then leave later that afternoon. This was the first time we stayed over at her place, and since her parents were away, they were very strict parents. They did not allow boys to stay in the house, let alone casual visits wasn't welcomed. As everyone tucked in, I had this strange feeling that someone was watching me throughout my time in her house. It was like an old woman standing over me, staring at me. Once I fell asleep, I started to dream about a strange old woman that I did not know. My sleep constantly broke throughout that morning. I think I might have woke up about 4 or 5 times. Eventually I woke up midday and decided to leave as I felt extremely uncomfortable. I remember my last dream I had about this lady was her and myself having a conversation about my ex and something to do with our relationship. She showed me some flashbacks of things that happened to my ex and her family, and I'm convinced she showed me how this relationship would end. Fast forward a few months later, we decided to meet the parents and everything went well. Few weeks later we were invited for a birthday party at her place. Her parents allowed us to have a get-together at her house, provided her brother and they cousins were there. I got a bit drunk that night and started talking to a close family friend of my ex about this woman that I dreamt about and this strange feel I get each time I visit. While we were all outside, I end up capturing a glimpse of this lady I had previously seen in my dreams. I then decide it's time to tell my ex. As I'm explaining to her something isn't right, she stops me and asks me to describe this person I am seeing. She then takes me into her parents' room and shows me a picture of her late grandmother. I was dumbstruck to a point where I literally got sober immediately. While looking at her picture to make sure I'm not delusional, all the events that this lady had shown me in a dream few months back started to unfold. Our friends started fighting with each other over something stupid. Her parents rocked up from a family member's house and started blaming me for this issue that's going on outside the house, since they have never had a problem there before. Lots of things, hurtful things were said, about how I don't exactly care, and they found camera footage of me and her at a garage I used to drop her off down her road, and her brother should pick her up. Soon after we had some time alone, the ex and myself started arguing because I just couldn't deal with how some parents treat other people and judge for so quickly. While in our disagreement, her brother starts arguing with myself and my friends, blaming us as we apparently started a fight for no reason. Shortly after that, her parents returned for me to hear more bullshit and negative remarks against myself and my friends. I have not once disrespected her parents once throughout this evening. I understand how old school tradition works. We are taught to never backchat to our elders even if they speak out of line towards us. However, speaking is such a manner to young adults, 20 plus, with utter disrespect is just not on. It felt that they thought it's their duty to teach us their way. I then felt overwhelmed and decided to gather my friends and just leave. While I was walking out, the only thing I could think of was, at this moment, while everything was up in smoke, I didn't hear much of what anyone had to say at the time. I didn't let anything that was happening around faze me. I went completely numb. I felt unconscious but conscious enough to know what was going on and what I was doing. It's like this old lady had shown me everything that was currently happening around me. People screaming at each other, some people fighting with each other, some people throwing glasses etc. For a second everything just froze, I froze. I felt stuck in a cycle of déjà vu. I could recall every word been said, every action, I could tell what type of reaction to expect from everyone around me. I'm very observant, I notice details more than big pictures naturally. I was more the relief to get outside that house and back onto the open road. My friends were obviously still drunk on the way back talking nonsense about what just happened. In the car I could pinpoint certain topics that were about to start and even things that were going to be said about certain individuals. The very next morning I decided to back-end apologize to my ex's father. I apologized for the commotion caused and not for the way we had gotten treated. I didn't speak about the argument between myself and the family. I had spoken to the girlfriend for a few minutes before I left and told her I can't do this anymore. I'm not the one to hide a relationship, but I know how to keep it private. I also told her I can't have her parents acting like private investigators getting video footage of us in a garage down the road from where she stayed. Some things that people do just seems off and super creepy. This is where things get really interesting. As I walked out the driveway, I end up seeing this old lady standing near the gate. This time she tells me, not sure if I heard her speak or just heard a voice in my head, "Tell him good luck, Monty." So what do you do in a situation where an IU about to explodes? I turn to her father, look him straight in his eyes as say someone said good luck, Monty. This was the first time this man didn't have anything to say, let alone know how to respond to me. Instead tears just started rolling down his eyes. As I walked down the driveway I felt empty, emotionless, cold, and heartless, and I couldn't give a damn of what he felt or what he was trying to mumble at me. Nothing bothered me, nothing affected me even the slightest. It was rage, it wasn't fear, it wasn't even regret. I was at peace with myself. He tried calling me after a few days, then tried in a few weeks, and then after a year or so. I did not accept any calls from anyone in that family since then. I didn't want to even think of being placed into a position like that again. Years later I spoke to the same family friend from the party. I told her about him trying to contact me on multiple occasions, even through private number. It turns out the old lady I had seen was the ex's father's mother, and good luck Monty was one of last things his mother told him before she passed away. She was actually wishing him good luck with him learning how to deal with kids, because he grew up with a strict father. Her fear was growing up like his father, strict with a ton of rules that doesn't make sense anymore, neither does it fit in this day and age. This is one of the most interesting experiences I've had in someone's home. Where I would generally dream about certain people, in certain houses, I don't stay at anyone's house period. Unless family or very very close friends too, to be exact. I actually could feel her presence, spoke to her and physically seen her on multiple occasions only in their house. I still hate them for multiple reasons, but I do hope they, as a family, have learned a good lesson in future. Be kind and caring to all, you never know who will tell you something you're not prepared to hear.
Posted by user Her Firefly. The time it was a creepy, small world. This happened a few years ago now, but Elle will never forget this. My friend, I'll call him Zach, was feeling pretty down for a few days. This was odd behavior for him, as Zach was usually very upbeat, laid back and happy-go-lucky. I also worked with Zach, so we'd see each other very often. I finally found out Zach was shook up by learning that one of his friends, I never met her, but she was a longtime friend of Zach's, was found murdered in her garage. This was some pretty dark stuff that I won't go into detail about, but after some more talks I decided we'd have another friend, I'll call him Host, throw a house party. Host loved hosting parties, but always felt weird just hosting them for no reason. He'd regularly ask about birthdays, accomplishments, and other such life events, searching for a reason to throw a party. I explained what was going on to Host and that Zach hadn't been doing anything but going to work, then drinking himself to sleep when he was off. It was starting to take a visible toll on Zach, and Host agreed that he'd throw a party under some other guise so we could try to get Zach out of the house to be out with some friends. Now at this point, it's good to know that host was a big scary dude. He was 300 pounds or so, stood easily at 6 feet 2 inches and only had one arm. He was also a felon, but was trying, or so we thought, to turn his life around. Host certainly had some connections that you didn't want to meet, and we'd later learn he was also involved in some incredibly illegal things. But we didn't know that yet. So the party comes around and we carpooled over. There were hundreds of people here. A couple off beer pong tables and a pool table in basement. A room with no lights beyond a TV playing visualizations and music that was much more mellow than the music in the rest of the party for people enjoying other things or just needing a dark quiet place to relax for a little. Ground floor had food and movies and the top floor with bedrooms for. Well, I'm sure you can guess. When we got there, Zach was pretty unconvinced he'd have a good time, but I convinced him to play a round of beer pong with me and host got a friend to play against us. Host kinda winked at me and him and his friend through the game, so we kept the table and the next time came up to play us. The next team were two close friends of ours and I don't think they threw the game like host did, but Zach and I won. One of them comes up later, in a minor role, but I'll name him Tyler. Up came the next team. It was another friend of ours, we'll call her Mel, and a guy none of us had never met, which wasn't too weird at a party this size, but we'd been to enough of host's parties that we were pretty well known and recognized a lot of faces. Being the friendly sort, we introduced ourselves to him. Me, hi, I'm OP and this is Zach, you've already met Mel. Guy, what's up, Loaf? Zach, hey, I'm Zach. Guy, yeah, Loaf. Me, what's your name? Guy, Loaf. Me, like a loaf of bread. Guy, just stares at me. Zach, well, alright Loaf, we're undefeated so far, so good luck, but we're going to destroy you. Zach was beginning to look and act like his usual happy self. We played and actually lost, so we congratulated them. Mel did some pretty standard trash talk and showboating, and Loaf didn't say a word after the game to us and actually refused to shake our hand over a good game. I was starting to get weird vibes from him, so I tapped Zach to come outside for a cigarette with me. Me, dude, does Loaf seem weird? Z, yeah man, I was just going to ask you the same thing. Something seems off about him, I dunno, maybe I'm just still in that funk. Nah man, something is off. What kind of name is Loaf even? It's like the name an alien chooses. At this point Tyler joined us. He didn't smoke, but he wanted to check in on Zach to see if he was feeling better. Tyler did some trash talk about losing to Mel and Loaf and said he was going to go beat them when his turn was up if they were still at the table when his turn came around. Tyler went in to get us new beers and Zach and I had another cigarette. Tyler came back and we kept talking. A little late Mel joined us. Oh, did y'all lose? Mel, no, that dude just walked away in the middle of the game without saying anything. He's super sketchy. Z, yeah, we were just saying that. Me, maybe he's going to drug someone. Maybe he's a murderer. Tyler then realized how bad of a joke that was in front of Zach and excused himself to tell host to keep an eye on this guy, as we all had that same weird vibe about him. Zach and I stayed outside and just kinda talked about the friend he lost. A little while later we went back inside and Tyler and his friend were dominating the beer pong table. But we couldn't find Loaf. We found host and asked if he had seen him. All host said was very calm and cold. He left. It was an odd answer, but we didn't think much of it. The night went on a little longer, and at one point Tyler had told us that when he went to warn host, he was already talking to Load about something and could tell he wasn't invited to the conversation by their hushed tone, body language, and glare as he approached. As he walked away he heard host beginning to raise his voice and tell something to the effect of, "You don't bring that crap around my house." When Tyler turned around, host had Loaf pinned to the wall by his neck and was beating him in the face with the stump of his other arm. Loaf left shortly after this and Tyler made himself scarce, pretending like he saw nothing. The rest of the night was uneventful. A few weeks later though, Mel, Tyler, Zach and a few others were blowing up my phone around 8 am. I woke up to see what the commotion was and learned Loaf wasn't his name at all. He was on the news arrested under suspicion of multiple murders, one of which was actually Zach's friend. We played beer pong with the guy who was later convicted of murdering Zach's friend. A little later we learned Host was dealing cocaine, facilitated a prostitution ring and was upset with Loaf for confessing a murder he did that same night. We suspect Host was worried that the cops may have followed him and that was the crap he couldn't bring around here. A little while later, Host had his house raided and was arrested for a number of things. Ultimately, we all felt kinda stupid for going to this guy's place as many times as we did and considered ourselves lucky that nothing happened to us. That's my story. I y'all enjoyed it. Loaf and Host, let's never meet again. 13 comments.
The creepiest thing I've ever seen is something that I've seen more times than I can count. This is definitely not a case of shadows dancing on the walls. I was as close as humanly possible on every instance. I could see every horrifying detail. It all started while I was laying in bed with my boyfriend. He slept on the side of the bed up against the wall. I was sleeping on the other side with my face turned to the side right on the edge of the bed. I had fallen asleep reading and I woke up suddenly and saw that my book was open, face down laying on my chest. I looked around the room but could only see my dresser beside the bed and the doorway. Because of how my head was angled, I started to drift back to sleep when suddenly movement in my doorway caught my attention. It was dark but the moonlight through the open window made it easy to tell that it wasn't my imagination. As the movement outside my doorway started coming closer, I began to make out its form. Suddenly I was wide awake and struggling to get away, but as it got closer I realized I was actually frozen in fear and completely unable to move. I lay there, helpless, watching as what I can only describe as the chick from The Grudge crawled across my floor in an almost robotic way. Let me stop right there and add that I have never seen The Grudge, that just isn't my kind of movie, but I am familiar with what the chick looks like. I have a lot of back pain, so I took my bed off of the frame and had my box spring and mattress directly on the floor for firmness, so it's pretty low to the ground. So I'm laying with my face turned and hanging slightly off the side of my bed, and in the walkway between my bed and the dresser the chick from The Grudge is robotically, and in the creepiest way possible, crawling slowly towards me. I'm completely unable to move or scream, but I try to scream over and over as she gets closer and closer. I'm so terrified that I'm shaking. I try to force my eyes shut but they won't cooperate. I lay there absolutely terrified, listening to her low growling and ticking noises as they get louder and louder the closer she got. Suddenly, she raised herself up off the floor. She had been crawling towards me with her face down, almost touching the floor as she crawled. She jerked upright, held out her hand and screamed. It didn't sound at all human, and then eerily jerked her body in a sickening twist and got right in my face, screaming her blood-chilling scream right in my face. She didn't look exactly like this. She had shorter hair, shoulder length, but unevenly cut, like someone had used a sharp rock to cut her hair. Her hair almost completely covered her face. The only other distinctive features were the huge black circles surrounding her eyes, and black veins that could be seen easily underneath her pale, almost transparent skin. In an absolute panic I screamed, but this time creating a sound, and woke up. Whew! It was just a dream. She was gone. I'm laying in the bed just how I was before. I see the book laying on my pounding chest, the dresser to my right, and the doorway past the foot of my bed. Everything was fine. I breathe a huge sigh of relief. And then I see movement in the doorway. I decide not to wait around to see what it is this time, but I suddenly couldn't move. It was like an invisible, magical force was holding me down. I tried to scream but my voice failed me once again. I focused on the doorway, trying and failing to see into the darkness of the hallway. It didn't matter. A few seconds later I no longer had to struggle to see. She was back. I watched helplessly as she crawled towards me in her twisted, robotic way. Every movement jerky, and accompanied by the low growling noise and the weird ticking noise that seemed to come from inside her. I screamed over and fought to get free, but I couldn't make my body or my voice work. Then once again she screamed and it stopped me in my tracks. I stopped fighting to get away, I stopped silently screaming. Just then she made a final lunge toward my face while her distorted scream echoed from the vast wasteland of her mouth. I closed my eyes and screamed, long and loud, and when I opened my eyes she was gone. Everything was back to normal in my room, yet I felt like I was dying and then instantly decided that dying would be better than this torture. I must be losing my mind. I knew I couldn't stay in this room another second, so I moved to get the hell out of there. Except I couldn't move. I tried to scream for my boyfriend, but my voice wouldn't work. She was gone, but I was still trapped. I struggled to free myself from this invisible bondage, but no matter how much I struggled, I noticed that my feet didn't move an inch. I lay there, forcing my toes to flinch just for a second, but nothing happened. While trying to see if my feet would move in some way, I saw something else move outside my doorway. I started crying, no. 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 Please, no, but I couldn't make a sound. I saw a pale hand with black pointy nails creep slowly through my doorway and into the moonlight. She grabbed at my carpet like she was holding on for dear life and started her tortuous crawl towards me. This happened over and over again, 9 or 10 times total, until the last time she visited me that night went exactly the same way as the other 9 times. It ended with her screaming in my face before restarting or resetting like every other time. The last time that didn't happen. I laid there watching the doorway, too afraid to look away even for a second. I was screaming and forcing my body to move so I could run, but nothing happened. I kept waiting and watching, fighting and screaming for what seemed like an eternity. And then I heard a muffled scream. It sounded like someone screaming at the top of their lungs, but the sound was muffled by a hand or a pillow. It grew fainter by the second, as if she had fallen into a gaping pit. Then a moment later my boyfriend turned my face towards him and said, "SSH. It's okay, you're awake now." I couldn't do anything but cry into his chest. I looked back over to the doorway, but I didn't see her. I tried to wiggle my toes, but it took a minute before I could finally start to move them. I looked up at him and noticed he was trembling. He saw that I noticed, and he saw the fear overtake me again as I turned back towards the doorway. He said, "Whatever it was just a dream." I said, "Then why are you shaking?" He said, "That scream," he trailed off, his voice cracking as he tried to form his words. He continued, "That scream was the most terrifying thing I've ever heard in my life." He looked at me with sympathy and pity, but also fear. It frightened me to see that he was a little bit scared of me, but mostly it made me sad. He looked guilt-ridden when he met my eyes and said, "I'm so sorry. I'm not helping you, but you'd understand if you had heard what your scream sounded like." Then he shivered as a chill went down his spine. I lit a cigarette and exhaled the smoke, and the words, "Oh, I know exactly what it sounds like." The memory of her just inches from my face and screaming made my hair stand on end. I looked him straight in the eye and said it wasn't me. Then I asked him to switch places with me and lay there for hours watching the doorway, wiggling my toes and waiting for her to come back. She didn't. That night. This exact scenario has happened dozens and dozens of times. The only thing that ever changes is the atmosphere, my P.J.S., the room I'm in, whether anyone else is in the room, the book I'm reading, etc. Everything else plays out in the exact same way, every time. I've now seen her crawl up to my face like that and scream well over 100 times. Every time I'm unable to move or scream, and each time is more terrifying than the last. It's not a dream. I am awake and able to see small details that no one would notice in dreams, like the date on a penny dropped and forgotten beside my bed. I've since moved from my apartment and bought a house in downtown, but she moved with me. I don't see her as often now as I did at first, but once I start to get comfortable and used to her absence, she always shows back up to torment me and remind me that an easy life is something that just isn't in the cards for me. It took several years, but I finally figured out why she's torturing me relentlessly. I have narcolepsy. It's not at all what I thought it was. I don't fall asleep walking down the sidewalk or anything, but I do have hypnagogic hallucinations when I'm trying to fall asleep. Hello grudge chick. I also have sleep paralysis. Hello invisible force holding me down. I'm also always tired, and no matter how much sleep I get, it's never enough. Sometimes I feel like I'm levitating, just hovering over my bed. I assume that comes with it. Does knowing this make it any less frightening? Hell no. This is like your worst nightmare on steroids. Every single aspect of it is real. What scares me the most is when it resets. I'm guessing that I wake up from a dream within a dream. I'm watching the doorway waiting to see if she's coming again, and I can never tell the difference between that and reality. Everything is exactly the same. I wait and watch and have no idea how much time has passed, and eventually I know it's over when she doesn't come back. It seems to last all night.